Whoosh. We're off, I
Whoosh.
think.
Hey,
I can never tell
welcome
quite
to
for
the
sure, like,
show.
when we go live, because we're super professional like that. It's like, it's live-ish.
Are we live? Are we doing it?
We're,
I don't know. It's saying we are. Uh,
yes, we should be
quick, say
live
something.
again for the second time.
I don't know. We have a lot of old episodes back in the days where we weren't streaming. We were just recording. Where like we would get like halfway through an episode and you'd be like, "Hang on,
Yeah.
I'm not recording." So
Well, hell,
it's
we had one video one on Twitch that was like that. I was like watching chat and stuff, and nobody was saying anything. And then I looked at like the video preview, and I'm like, I don't see anything. And I looked at OBS, and it's like, you're streaming to nowhere. It's like, oh,
right.
great. But anyway,
So
which is
uh,
basically that was our year in review. These technical issues. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah, incompetent, bumbling fuckers for what 5 years straight now. Um,
Yeah, I know. I completely like laughed out loud when I read your critique of Firewatch because I'm like, well, that would be a great review for our podcast as well.
yeah, and we'll talk about Firewatch because today we're doing our year in review.
Yeah, it's a little different than
But
we've done in the past. We'll pick some best ofs, but we're mostly kind of just looking back over what we played.
yeah, foregoing our usual end of the year awards, which I like doing, but it's gotten to the point, especially these last couple of years, where it's like you and me play maybe the same 3 games, and then it's like just two people like trying to decide on an award winner, like between 2 games the other has never touched or looked at, and so
Well,
like it's hard to like really do categories like that.
especially,
So
and then the other thing is just two of us, so there's always some like that should definitely be like award contenders that just neither of us played or had a chance to play. Like the
yeah,
big problem this year is that obviously, if you watch the Game Awards, Uncharted 4 is the best game ever made, but neither of us played it.
I played Uncharted 4.
Oh, you did.
What
So
is
then
it?
it
Yeah.
gets all of our awards. That's the year we're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, we solved it. Never mind. Let's pull out our usual awards and give them all to Uncharted.
That's
Um,
what they did, it seemed, but whatever.
yeah. So, I did want to mention these games because I do own them now. Santa was very nice to me this year, or a complete dick if you look at it
I
in
know
terms
you
of
got
how
an
much
ass.
time you have.
You got an assload of games, so
Yeah, so games that won't show up, I have a top 10 here. I have highlighted some disappointments of the year, which kind of evens out because most of my top 10 is all surprises, games that I didn't know I was going to like so much. Um, and then I have everything in between. But Titanfall 2, Final Fantasy 15, and Watch Dogs 2 are just games that I just got for Christmas, and I don't know when I'll have time to play them all. Um, I started Titanfall 2 last night, but I only got obviously a couple missions in to the campaign. But I will say, I would be surprised from what I've played if that didn't end up on my top 10. That game feels really good.
and that's what I heard. It was surprising too.
Yeah, and like they strike a good balance of like when you're on your feet and you're in the sort of I mean, they're Respawn now, but it's the Modern Warfare template. It's those guys really who made kind of what we know as the Call of Duty formula. So there is that feel to it, but like all the maneuverability, the wall running, the double jumping, like all that stuff feels really smooth and slick. And so you're doing cool action hero stuff like sliding and like shooting at the same time that like it's really easy to do and feels really great. And then like when you hop in your mech, there's that good jump of like feeling like, all right, now let's fuck shit up. Like you feel really powerful. And like those robot fights are really fun to like there's enough variety in the weapons and mechanics of the robot that like you don't feel like you're ever doing the same fight over and over again, at least in the intro. Like obviously I could play the whole game and be like, this has gotten really stale, but right now I really like the variety of it. And I like the relationship they're kind of building between your character and your robot. Like he's not just a mech with no personality. Like he's your robot buddy, and like you have sarcastic bantering and shit going on, and it makes that whole future warfare thing that's gotten kind of stale. Like it kind of refreshes it a little bit for a campaign. So that's a notable admission, but or omission rather. But I do think that game is one that's worth checking out. FF15 and Watch Dogs 2, those are going to be they're going to require a lot of time.
Yeah, Watch Dogs 2 I don't think is that much time compared to Final Fantasy.
But it's an open world game. It's a Ubisoft open world game for that matter. So it's a lot. Like how much you actually do is kind of up to you, but they packed it with like busy work. And it really, like, the mark of a good Ubisoft open world game is how much time do you want to spend in that world. So if it's good, that just means it'll take me longer to play it all. And if it's not good, then I won't want to do anything in it. But but I've heard good things about it. So that's why I put it on my Steam wish list, and someone got it for me.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. You didn't play the first Watch Dogs, did you?
No, and why the fuck would anyone after what they heard about it?
It really wasn't bad from a gameplay standpoint. It's just like the story was stupid, and your main character was like, it's like, oh, you died, and as a player, you're like, good.
Good. It just seemed really dry.
There. Yeah. Yeah,
like they made a really dry hacker story, right? And this one kind of goes goofy.
On like building the, I don't want to say the engine because it's probably the same engine as Assassin's Creed and stuff, but they were spent so much time building the mechanics of being able to hack stuff and affect the gameplay that way. And I think they did a good job with it, but it left everything else just kind of generic. Some people really liked it, but.
Yeah. I think they like the mechanics of it, but I think everyone had the same criticism of it. It's just not, like, it has interesting ideas, but it's just not fun to play because the world's so fucking dry and boring. And that's, everybody who saw that potential was praising Watch Dogs 2. Like, yeah, they went, in a much more colorful direction with it, a lot sillier in some ways, but, it seemed good. It seemed pretty cool. Last game I want to talk about before we kind of get into the wrap up, because this won't be in my top 10. But yeah, it is kind of currently playing. The Last Guardian.
Yeah, I saw you finish that.
Yeah. And it only took me a couple days, but I will say that game is probably a few hours longer than I thought it needed to be. There's actually like an achievement for like a PlayStation trophy for beating it in under 15 hours. And I'm like, if it takes someone 15 hours, like they should just fucking quit. Cause like I would be so frustrated at the 15-hour mark that it wasn't over. But I enjoyed it, even though I wouldn't call it a top 10 game of the year for me. Cause I played so much and it's hard ranking this shit. There are a lot of really cool moments in that game. Getting fucking phone calls in the middle of our goddamn year review.
Go ahead, just answer it. Well, I'll say it.
Yeah. Hey, hang on. Talk about Darkest Dungeon. So there's a lot of powerful moments. Like I think the game, like this sounds miserable, and honestly, it sounded miserable to me until I played it. But the idea of like a puzzle platformer game where instead of the game handing you sort of tools and mechanics, it throws you a independent creature in some ways, an animal rather than an ability. Like that leads to some really interesting, powerful moments. Like the times where the animal saves you or you have to save the animal. Trico is its name. Like when you have those moments, it's really cool. And a lot of people are like frustrated because you do have to command him a little bit and he doesn't always listen. But I never had like the problem where it's like Oh fuck! I spent 10 minutes on it because he wouldn't, he wouldn't jump on a platform or something. Like I only had one instance where I really couldn't get him to do what I needed him to do. I'm assuming it's a him. They never really say. So like all you know about Trico is that he used to be able to fly and he shits, and like that's all you know about the game. But there was a point where like I had to go down a dark hallway, and if Trico follows you like he's supposed to, like his eyes will light up kind of the room for you, and and then there are pits you can fall into, which they don't kill you, but they make you have to go through this long fucking cycle all the way back. So you need him to light it up, and he would just not fucking come with me. And I got sick of it. So, it's 2016. So our TVs have abilities now. So I just turned up the brightness, and I was like, fuck it. He can. And that's one thing I do like is like there's never a point where it's like you're 2 rooms ahead and the fucking animal didn't follow you. Like he will always follow you after a certain point. Like he doesn't want to get too far away from you. And there's the little moments of like, well, fuck, he's not jumping, and then suddenly kind of on his own he does the jump, and it's like, well, that took a few minutes longer than it probably should have to get through that area. But for the most part, the thing that bothered me wasn't the animal, it was the fucking kid. Like I don't even remember Shadow of the Colossus and Ico controlling as clumsily as this fucking kid does in this game. Like he's very sluggish. He takes goddamn years to climb up platforms, and which is fine until you're being chased by goddamn magical suits of armor who want to kill you. And it's like, all right, I need you to get up on the fucking ledge, dude. And he's like, And it's like, you got caught. And then there's like a lot of the game you have to climb onto Trico, and like Shadow of the Colossus, I thought it did a really good job of like capturing the sort of lack of control of like climbing something that's gigantic but living.
Right.
So you like it feels like you're barely hanging on. In this game, it seems like they carried over a lot of that. But it's frustrating because you need to be able to get around on Trico a lot more smoothly. There were so many points where I just want to get off him to go, start the next puzzle. Like I want to get on the ground, and I can't do it because every time I like try to just jump off, the kid grabs the fucking bird dog at a different angle, or like they give you a button that just lets go. But it's not like let go and like land on your feet. It's literally let go and your kid fucking ragdolls onto his fucking spine, onto the concrete.
That sounds
like
awesome, though.
It's funny until you're 10 hours in, and then you just want the game to be over. Those things aside, those guys know like how to like make a game that's like Ico and Shadow. They have rough edges. Like they're beautiful games, they're powerful games, but they're not perfect in terms of playing them. I wish there was more polish to this one after those 2 games. Like I feel like the amount of time they took.
I was gonna say after like 20 years in development too.
Yeah. And there are points where you can see like all right, this is probably an area that gave them a lot of trouble. There are some technical issues. I heard it's better on a PS4 Pro, which is bullshit, because that's exactly what Sony said wouldn't happen. But there are points where the fucking frame rate plummets. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason for it. It's just these key areas where something happens, and for some reason everything just like chugs to a crawl. So it's really rough. Like it's kind of like I'm glad I played it, but it's more like you have to enjoy these games already, and you kind of had to be invested in like this game's development and like all the trouble it went through. Like for me, it was kind of like my Duke Nukem Forever, where it's like I wanted to see how this game turned out, and I think it actually turned out, much better than that, obviously.
Oh, sure.
But good enough in its own right, because there is a really powerful story there between like this kid and this animal, and like man having to work together with nature, but nature as an entity and like society as an entity not really allowing that cooperation. I think they do a really good job of telling that story. I just don't think they always do a good job making a game for that story. But it's cool, Like I said, I'm glad I played it. I'm glad I know how the story of this game's development ends, and I'm glad it ends on mostly a positive note. And now we don't have to fucking worry, because they don't, like, that guy will go off to do whatever the fuck. He won't have to have this hanging over his head.
Say the next game won't come out until 2047 anyway, so.
Well, he left the studio. Like, he left, I think it was Ueda is his last name. He, like, that was part of the trouble in the development, was he left the team in the middle of the development, but he came back as sort of like, look, I'll finish Last Guardian as like an independent contractor.
Yeah, right.
And Sony's like, all right, whatever, just fucking finish the game. And then it went up to, like, it was a PS3 game originally, and then it was a PS4 game, and then it was getting delayed. And like, imagine my fucking surprise when that game actually came out.
Well, and it kind of finally happened quick from a historical standpoint, because it had like an actual date, I thought, earlier this year, even like
yeah.
And then they delayed it again, and you thought, well, we're just going right back into the cycle. And then they're like, yeah, it's coming to, I think when they finally announced like the actual like release date, it was a month or two ahead of time, like not real long, like.
Yeah, they pretty much said like, here's the date, and now the game is gold. Like, yeah. Now it's rare.
But and I think what made it feel like kind of sudden is most of us even then were like, yeah, right. And
yeah,
then it's like, no, it's on store shelves. You're like, yeah, right. Like,
yeah,
no,
it's kind of like
you're actually physically playing it right now, and as you're playing the game, you're like, yeah, right.
Yeah, like FF15 and Last Guardian, like those are two, like when you really think about it, it's fucking crazy that both those games actually came out. Because like
the same year, nonetheless.
Because we had just been hearing about them forever. Like 15, that was versus 13. That was back when they like Square had these big visions for Final Fantasy 13, where it wouldn't just be one game, but it would be like that trilogy, and then there would be these like side stories to it, and then they were just like, well, fuck it, it's taken long enough. This is just Final Fantasy 15 now. So yeah, that's I think that's about all I've been playing. As far as like catch up, obviously I'm playing Overwatch and getting fucked over by loot boxes every day.
Yeah,
I got the fucking Zarya emote again. And like
that's infuriating. It really
I got that 5 times now, which is cool because it gives you 200 coins, but that's not enough for what I want. For anything that I actually want.
I'd be like at tweeting, play Overwatch like 8 times an hour, like.
Well, it's gotten to the point where like I'm just exhausted by Overwatch. Yeah. Like I've gotten more fucking loot boxes since this winter event started than I ever did at any other period of time playing Overwatch.
Well, it's inexcusable that you get 5 of the same thing.
Yeah.
With as many, even if it's like we're gonna screw you and not give you the Christmas stuff, there's so many emotes and intros and
yeah, just anything like fucking new. Like anytime I've gotten a gold, it's been the Zarya emote, and to me that's bullshit. There shouldn't be a legendary emote.
No.
I don't care if it is for fucking Christmas. So I'm kind of like after I got that yesterday, I was like, you know what, I don't care anymore. I have been hunting loot boxes every day since this winter event shit started. I'm done. Like, and now when I play Overwatch, it's going to be to play the game. I'm not gonna be doing it for their stupid fucking boxes that are completely random, more random than they should be. and unrewarding. Like
Yeah,
I'm seeing grays and blues in my sleep,
that's
and
what
I'm
I get
done.
mostly. But this event's been ridiculous. My last box, I got Farah's Christmas or holiday skin, so I've basically got everything now. I still need McCree's, which I'll buy if I
Yeah.
don't get, and then I don't have Torb's legendary, which I'd like, but not enough to spend the.
Well, now it's like we are such a weird family that like once Christmas is over, like the next day, all of our Christmas stuff is fucking packed up and we're done.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
and I
and
get
and
behind
I'm the
that
kind
100%.
and I'm kind of that way with Overwatch too. Like I went through and I was like, you know what? Unless I think it's a really cool skin, I'm fucking all right. All your fucking holiday shit is gone. We're
Yeah,
done here.
and that I kind of made. That's the point I was trying to make last week when we were talking about it. Is some of the skins are pretty cool. They're really over underwhelming. I kind of felt that way about Halloween too, but Halloween had a couple like really cool ones.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is, and it's the same for the Halloween ones. Like now, I see Reaper with his pumpkin head, and I'm like, switch it to something else, jerk. Like it's not Halloween anymore.
I still like the Pumpkinhead one.
Eh,
I'm a horror kind of uh, not a buff because
well,
that would imply I have some knowledge about horror, but I like Sleepy
you like
Hollow
that
and all that
genre, yeah.
shit. Yeah, like it has nothing to do with Halloween really. Yeah, like I just like the idea of like silly, scary things.
Yeah, and I should
Um,
say, I think I still have it as my Reaper skin. I don't know. I barely ever play Reaper except
like
for the.
that one, and the like. I actually thought his winter one was pretty cool too because it's just nice. Like it's
Yeah,
not
I don't
like
have.
it's not
That's one
him
of
with
the
like a
like.
dumb fucking jingle bell hat on or something.
That's one of the three I don't have, and that's his and Farah's are basically the same. Like just that like black cloak with like the ice, like glowing ice, and they're all right.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but
I
yeah, yeah, you've been getting
um
dicked over big time by those boxes.
yeah.
It's funny because I of course mean to rub it in because I'm a jerk, but it's been the complete opposite like experience for me. It's like I'm getting a holiday skin every other loot box.
Yeah, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's not even. It's just kind of like like I'm putting shit into a slot machine, and you're winning every time, like right next to me.
Right.
But it's like I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at this fucking system, and then I'm at a point now where it's like I'm mad at my fucking self that I keep playing. Like the way I'm looking at it now is like I've just resigned myself. I'm not gonna get that fucking Zenyatta skin. Now I don't really care because the holidays are over. So it's like next time they do a cool event with something I like, I'm gonna have a lot of money saved up. Like that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, just like don't
Um,
spend your. You mean in-game money or?
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
in game. Yeah. Yeah, I
Well,
mean, I'm
see,
done buying. Like
I
I
was
was a
doing that specifically for this event because I could have sworn that for Halloween and for the Olympics, both those I think were the two most recent. That even the legendaries there were still just the 2,000 coins, like they are, like the normal legendaries. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I thought. And I was like, cool, I have enough to get a legendary, or no, 1,000. I think is what the regular legendaries are. And it's like, yeah, I've got enough to get a couple. And then they come out and all the holiday legendaries are 3,000 coins. I'm like, shit.
Yeah. And that's fucking rough. Like
Especially since there's no like consistent way to get coins in Overwatch. It's not like a lot of games you'll get X amount just like for each round you play, so you can build them up. This you basically have to hope for them in a loot box or duplicates. But most duplicates give you crap. Like,
yeah. And I mean, I have to back off in some respect. Like I'm frustrated with it, but I have to also understand this is part of how they expect to like make their money, doing
that,
this. Like
and sometimes you have to like resign yourself to the idea that like they're not meant for everybody to be able to have all of them because that
yeah,
takes like the specialness away.
right. And that would be fine if I could get fucking any of them.
Right.
Yeah, that's not true. I got the Tracer one, but that's the fucking lamest one.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's you have to don't loot box hunt is the message here. Just play Overwatch because Overwatch is fun to play.
See, you almost sound like you went to like the Gamblers Anonymous, and now you're like going through your mantra, like.
Except Gamblers Anonymous is like they wouldn't tell you go back to just enjoy blackjack.
Yeah.
They would say stop fucking playing blackjack.
That's
Um,
true. Go watch the horses. Just don't bet anything on them. Or hell, even bet on them. Just don't expect to win anything. But anyway, before we move on to, I wanted to mention I've got two on my list that I didn't get as many holiday games as you did, but I got a couple. Um, so there's a few on my list that there's really only two I wanted to talk about that I just don't have enough of an opinion yet. One, I've had this on my wish list forever, Satellite Rain, and I don't know how much you know about that game, but it was a Kickstarter project, and it's been in early access for a while. It's actually out now, and it's actually been out for a while at this point too.
yeah.
But it was from the creator of the original Syndicate games, the top-down like action strategy games. Um, and me and a buddy played a lot of Syndicate growing up in the '90s. We really liked it, and so I've had my eye on it because of that. But it was just one of those where when it was in early access, it was supposed to be pretty rough. Most of the stuff I read about it was like it could be a good game, but like it had some ironing out to do. And then it came out and it got pretty positive reviews, at least from the fans. But it was just one of those games where I never had the time or the like money to justify picking it up. But I did finally get it. I had some credit. I don't remember. I think I talked last week about I bought Deathwing when it came out, and then it was terrible, and I
Yeah.
immediately got a refund. So that's what I did is I used my credit to pick up a few things. Um, but so far, I haven't played a lot of it. I've played through like the first. It's almost a tutorial mission, and it's really cool how it's one of those games that does it fairly organically. It's like you're just playing a mission, and it'll kind of explain as you go along. Um, and then you get into the like cyberpunk city like overworld, and I didn't realize it's almost like open world, like the way it does the mission approach. So that's kind of cool. Um, but it seems really good so far. Uh,
Cool.
that'll be something I'll be playing going into next year. The other one is something that was from this year, and I really wish I had picked it up when there was like two waves when it first came out. Everybody was ranting, or not ranting, raving about it, and then it like was on a sale or part of a humble bundle or something, and I should have got it then. But that's kind of sparked another round of like 8 different people I follow on Twitter, like, "Oh, this game is great," and that's Darkest Dungeon. So I grabbed that, and I've played I don't want to say a lot of it, but I played a lot more than I did Satellite Rain.
You seem really enthusiastic.
It is awesome. It is really good. What surprised me the most about it is, it's like an indie type game, and I kind of knew, or at least I thought I knew what the game entails, and I was kind of right. I'm trying to think what it would be close to as far as the like combat and stuff. Almost maybe something like a Paper Mario, where it's turn based, but it's like viewed from the side, and each character in your party has different abilities that they can do, and whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but just from a polish standpoint, I was blown away because it's a little small studio. I forget who they like split off of, but I think this is their first game. And as far as the presentation, just the visuals and the sound and the story behind it and the voiceover, like as soon as the game fires up, it catches your attention because it's better than most like I hate using the term, but AAA games. Like I'm used to like playing something indie and being like, yeah, this is good, but you have to make some allowances, and this is a really well done game. It's got a really good sense of style too, and that's important for a game. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mean necessarily visually, although that does, but the visuals and just the tone and the writing. There's a little bit of kind of dark comedy in there, but it all just fits so well, and the mechanics are really cool. So I'm really psyched about that. Uh, the other really good thing about it is like the game plays out in expeditions. Basically, they're marked by weeks, but you have like your overworld, your like town where you can heal heroes or recruit new heroes or upgrade equipment and that kind of stuff, and then you pick a quest to embark on. Um, and so far, I've been fairly successful on those. I did get one party get wiped, and when the characters die, they die. It's almost roguelike in that perspective, but XCOM would be a great analogy there. Um,
Hmm.
So as you build your characters up, if they you're constantly running that, should I run some like rookies to kind of build them up, or do I want to take my like good character that I love all of his equipment and stuff in and risk losing him, or her, I guess. So it's got that cool like aspect to it. But you can fire it up and run just like an expedition or a mission or two if you've only got a few minutes, which I love. I've talked about that before. I really like when a game lets me play it casually if I want to, or then I could sit down and play for hours if I had to.
When it's like broken up like that, and so that you can really get sucked in to however much time you have. Yeah. I was kind of, I was pleasantly surprised when you got me to send me that, because I was, that's a game that I knew about it, but it's a game I wouldn't have tried, like I wouldn't have paid for myself.
Yeah, and I think you'll like it, but it was funny too, because I was like, I think Ben will like this, and it'll be a nice like end of the year thing.
And also maybe we can talk about the same thing.
No, I knew it wouldn't be for this episode, but I was like, it's like, I even checked like of course Steam won't let you buy a gift for somebody if they already have it. But I was like, I checked your wish list, and I'm like, oh, I'll go ahead and get this even though it's not on there. And then as soon as I like bought it and like sent it over, I was like, wait, shit, I hope he didn't have that on PlayStation 4, because I think it's on PlayStation as well.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Unless it was a freebie. I mean, it's a.
It would be a much better game suited for a PC, in my opinion, anyway. But
yeah, probably.
But I think you'll like it. But I've been loving it so far.
Yeah, I'll when I get time.
I know,
that's the interesting thing.
I was like, I should get him like something for like doing this stuff all year. But I'm like, I saw all the games that you got. I'm like, he'll get to this in about 4 years.
Yeah, I'll probably get to it before that. But I mean, it's like I spent so much time waiting for this fucking Steam sale, and then I like everything I bought. Like, I won't say I didn't buy things for people, but it was always for other people, and I didn't use it for myself really at all, because like this is the first time that I can remember where I'm like, I have too much shit to play, and before I know it, it's going to be January. We're gonna have RE7 and. And then I'm going to be in that fucking Kingdom Hearts fucking HD rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah, that one will. I thought you meant the next Kingdom. Is it 3? Like the
3, yeah. Who knows when 3 will actually come out. But I think they are releasing all of them again for the PS4. And I think that will be a very good streaming series.
And it's got even spiffier graphics. It's like the 8th time that they've bumped up the graphics.
I don't think they're bumping shit up. I think they're fucking full of crap.
It on a disc there. Here you go.
Because fuck backwards compatibility, right?
They're minting exactly one copy, and they're sending it to a store. Like, not even giving it to you. They're gonna put it on like the store shelf near you and make you go get it, because they're like, we just know Ben will.
Yeah, get it by hand. Can like fucking bring it up to the counter and fucking assume the position, you fuck. But I think that'll be a good streaming series for me, kind of going through that series, because I have a very interesting arc of like that game being kind of a guilty pleasure, and then like I kind of was able to justify it, and then I replayed them, and now it's like this weird, like I fucking hate them, but like I've played them all. And I have to keep playing them. I have to see how this all ends.
Part to me is not like if they kept like doing new installments. It's like, oh, here's a new story. I could see that, but it's like, here's the exact same story again, jerk. Like,
well, I want to know what I liked about them. Like, I want to know what like I saw in them. And every time I've played them since, like they get worse and worse. Not Birth by Sleep. Birth by Sleep, when I replayed it, that held up pretty well. I enjoyed it. But 1 and 2, they're fucking garbage for completely different reasons. And 3D is the one coming out in January, the remake of that. I really enjoyed that game. I reviewed it for the site. But I don't, I'm terrified of replaying it, because I know it's going to...
You'll play it and you'll be like, what was I thinking?
What the fuck? This is not a good action game. But like I said, it's going to. I have so much to play that I would be surprised if I got right to all that shit that comes out at the beginning of the year. Um, with that said, I think we've put it off. We can get into the
the
year in
meat of the stuff.
review.
Right. We probably shouldn't waste a lot of time talking about what will come out when we haven't talked about
Yeah,
what did.
we need to go. We need to go look towards the new year, ass backwards, reflecting on what has been and what should have been.
And we'll
Um,
stick to video games because everything else this year you don't want to review. You're just like,
yeah, yeah.
it didn't happen. I've blocked it out. We've moved on.
2016 was the start of the bad times. Um, we all knew that. Our
I think
first
you
clue was
just gave
Bowie.
me the first line of my next. I say my first novel. 2016 was the bad times.
Start of the bad
The
times.
start of the bad. But anyway, um, so we might as well get talking about bad times. Get our disappointments out of the way. I don't know how you want to do. We're professional. We haven't really talked about the format of this week's show.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the way I have it broken up is I have a list of everything I play because I'm fucking OCD. Um, and I have it broken up by my disappointments and like not necessarily all disappointments. Some of them are games I had no idea about. Just bottom of the barrel shit. I have my top 10, which I always have. And then I kind of have everything else, and there's no real structure to that, but I might recommend a few games out of there that weren't good enough for top 10, but
Yeah, and
like,
I've kind of like I've got, but my list is much shorter. I've got like a top four, and then I've got like two disappointments, and then everything else. And I kind of also separated out a game that's still in early access, so I don't really want to like place it as anything because it's not really out yet. And then
yeah,
I made a short list of games I played that weren't from 2016, so I didn't want to.
old games of the year.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
things that I played, but not part of the talks. Like, oh, remember me? That was crap. I'm not putting that in my best
But
of.
just like something that was like a part of your year.
Right,
Yeah. But yeah, we should start with disappointments
because they're disappointing.
I have a fucking, like, I want to talk about Firewatch more than fucking anything right now because I'm seeing so many people like Giant Bomb's doing their huge game of the year coverage this week, and they just have a bunch of their industry friends and acquaintances. They all jump on the site and they put their top 10s on there, and so many people are putting Firewatch on their top 10, and I have no fucking idea why.
Did you see that? That's a cloud. It looks like a bunny. Over. I don't know how the
That
actual
game
radio
is,
sounds because
like,
I didn't play it, but yeah.
like I gave it a 5.5 out of 10 because I'm nice, because I'm fucking nice.
But you
And I
can
don't want to completely shit on people, but that fucking game is not a top 10 game. If you call that a top 10 game, you did not play enough
it's
shit.
got everything an indie game needs, though, Ben. It's pretty and you can move around.
Literally, the one positive I wrote down on my notes is it's pretty and it has a turtle.
Well, the turtle in and of itself is just like 5, so that 0.5 is the visuals.
Yeah, no, the 0.5, yeah, the 0.5 is the visuals, the 5 is the turtle, and the turtle's name of Turt Reynolds.
Turtles, yes.
Like,
Forgot
that's the
about that.
best. Like, and it
It
has
is a gorgeous
good,
game, but that doesn't mean a whole lot in and of itself.
and it has good voice acting, which is what everyone falls back on when they're talking about that game. I was like, oh, but the character interaction, and it's like, yeah, they do. Like, these voice actors are talented, and they do have chemistry, but it goes nowhere. There's no character development through that interaction, and that interaction is so disconnected because the story jumps around so much that there's no progression. You don't, at the start of that game to the end of that game, how much has anyone really changed?
So they don't like fall in love or like learn a deep life lesson or anything. It's
like, I
just
mean, there's like the hinting that there's kind of a romantic thing between them, but they're fucking talking over radio, and like they do have a friendship that builds, but you don't feel like you're really a part of that friendship.
what they really needed to do is at the end, the twist is they zoom out and your character's got 2 walkie-talkies on his belt and he's both people. It's like the Fight Club thing.
Right. That would have been better if he had just made up that fucking woman in his mind. That would have been a way better story. The story goes nowhere.
Nowhere. Yeah.
That's the problem. Like as a story about character interaction, nothing happens. As a mystery, as like a murder mystery thing that's going on, there's a cool setup for it, but nothing happens. Like the payoff is incredibly weak on that front. Um, so the story doesn't satisfy either of its opportunities. So you're left with this pretty world with nothing to do in it.
You get to
You
watch the
can't
fire. It's right in the name.
you can't even do that because like there's no fire. Like
Well, that's a good day if you're on the fire watch.
I mean, there's a fire, by the end of it, but everyone can see that. You're not
You're not the one that
helping.
got to report it.
Yeah, like in
Fire
fact,
ho.
it's told to you, like, hey, a fucking big fire is there now.
You like run and throw yourself into it. Like fuck this game, I'm done.
Fuck, I wanted to by the end. Like, yeah, that was the most disappointing game of the year. Fuck No Man's Sky. Like, fuck Street Fighter 5. That game could have been really fucking cool.
It needed guns and it needed some aliens.
Yeah, it needed Doom fucking level fucking bullshit. It was like that game really bummed me out when it came out because I was with everyone else who are like, this looks beautiful. That story looks really interesting to me. And then like they did nothing with it.
Now I'm hoping because it's what is it, Campo Santos or something? The
Yeah,
developer.
Yeah,
And
so
I'm hoping that they release like a remix version that all it does is add RPG style character progression, but no like action or any else. You just randomly get to put points into like BS statistics.
Yeah, like well, it just felt like they didn't. They had an idea, but they didn't have a story. Like they had a setup, but they didn't have anywhere to go with it.
It's a game about nothing.
It is a game about nothing. It is the fucking Seinfeld episode.
That's probably what it was. I think they had to like go into their like Sony. Well, I guess Sony didn't publish that. I don't think.
And what's
they
so
went into
frustrating?
their pitch meeting, not knowing what they were going to do, and they just thought back to that episode.
And I'm like not seriously telling people like if it was one of your favorite games of the year, like more power to you. Like, but to me, it's just like the fact that so many people are like just because the game has good voice actors behind it, like they're praising it like it's this high art storytelling, and it to me that says our standards for storytelling are incredibly low.
Well, and
because like if a movie was like this. That would be a bad fucking movie. If a book was like this, it would be a bad book.
I'm all constantly at odds with like people and their opinions on movies because I don't get it. But right. I think that's just part of the problem with these. And I know I hate the term because it kind of has like a derogatory connotation to it automatically. But these artsy games is sometimes they'll speak to you and you'll be like, wow, that's great. And then the next person plays it and it doesn't reach them on any level whatsoever, but there's nothing else to them. So if that happens, like I can see it being like, oh, this game's really high on my list. And then somebody else being like, this game's garbage because that's all there is. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can say that about a lot of movies and books too. But
I just like, to me, like any other medium, like you apply a Firewatch to it, I would still feel just as kind of deceived and kind of angry about it. Like, as that's the thing. Like, if this was just like, well, the story didn't do anything for me. Like, no, I'm mad because to me there is no fucking story.
Yeah, and
like,
sometimes
they didn't do
it feels like that,
anything.
where it's like everybody built up their expectation because that was a game that people had their eye on for a long time before it came out. It's not like one of those games that just came out of nowhere.
And how they sold it. They sold it as like, hey, you're going to be building this relationship with this person in the woods, and then something fucked up's going on in the woods. There's somebody in your tower while you're not there, and you have to get back, and then they're not there. Right. It's, they're like they sold it to you as something more than what it was.
Right.
And
so I think some people were reaching when they like want to justify why they thought it was so good because they already had that. No, and as human, I mean, we do that all the time. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm gonna love this, and you play it or watch something and it's not very good, but you've convinced yourself that it is. Um,
Right.
and then you
You
make
know,
up bullshit
I'll pull.
reasons like, oh, but their shoes were really cool.
I'll pull. I mean, I'll pull one out from this year that I think I did that on in retrospect. Is Layers of Fear. Like I think I liked that game. Like I wanted to like that game a lot more than
Yeah,
actually how
probably.
good it is.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll say that. Like you know, I probably rated that game too highly. Um, but you know, I definitely wanted to like Firewatch, and like that let me down on goddamn every level. Um, except for the turtle. Great
Turtle.
turtle. You know,
Kurt Reynolds
if
too. I
we
mean, that's one of the greatest things I've ever
if
heard. So
Firewatch 2 is like you're just a little turtle watching for fires, like that, make that fucking game because that'll be a good one.
I'm gonna spend the rest of this episode trying to think of turtle pun names for for a theoretic Firewatch 2. So
Yeah,
you
that'll
lost
be
me. If
hard
I'm
to do.
quiet,
That'll
if
be hard to do.
I
Like
know,
what
like I
other
think
than turtle?
I mean, you could come up with other ones, but I think they picked the king of all.
Yeah, they nailed it. Um, the other one I had kind of high up was XCOM 2 in terms of disappointments, which you know isn't totally fair because I still have plans to go back and really give that a fair shake because I kind of brushed it off after a few
Yeah.
hours.
Well, and
Um,
that's the thing when you say disappointment too doesn't necessarily mean bad game. It means you had a certain expectation and it just didn't meet it.
right. Because the first game was so good.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I think, you know, I mean, obviously for a lot of people, what was disappointing was it was fucking broken at launch. Um, like
That's never a good thing. I'd have never heard
uh,
anybody go, "Woohoo, it's broken."
yeah, but it's even more, I think, inexcusable when they did all that kind of like press about like, hey, yeah, only PC, and we're focusing on the PC instead, and it's like, and then it doesn't even fucking work on most PCs. Um,
And the
so
kicker is
like,
like, well, this thing would have been fine on PlayStation, but
yeah, so that's really, I think, kind of like, yeah, that's going to slap disappointment on your game no matter what. Um, but really, for me, what made me kind of blow it off was like the first game was stressful, but like the second one just seemed like a constant pain in the ass. Like, and by that I mean, like the first game would give you tense missions, but it always seemed like there was a variety to them, and there was always like there was that feeling of like, okay, I got to buckle down, but I can do this. And in XCOM 2, it's not so much that you feel like you can't do it, but it feels like I don't want to, because like just like right out the fucking gate, every mission was like defuse the bomb in 8 turns.
yeah, those are like the worst missions.
And I'm just like, I'm so fucking done with defusing bombs. Like, the other game like broke it up where it's like, okay, now rescue these hostages. In this one, it's like rescue these hostages, but there is a bomb, so you have to defuse that in 8 turns. And then there was like the whole sort of overlaying threat thing they tried to do, which I you know, it's kind of why I want to go back to the game in the end and try to figure it out. But I didn't understand like how it worked, where they like the game was constantly like in like 3 days or whatever, bad shit's gonna happen, and it's gonna be one of these 2 things, and it doesn't feel like there's anything you can really do about it to stop it. So I don't.
In other words, it's a perfect 2016 game. Like,
Right.
you see the train wreck
The
coming
world's
from a mile
ending.
away, and you're helpless. And you're just like, well,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, well, it really, like the way it came across to me at the time, and maybe there is stuff you can do to prevent it, but the way it came across to me is like, all right, this is just a different sort of timer
Yeah.
where enough bad shit happens, you probably won't beat the game. And that to me is bullshit. Like, because the first XCOM was not just the challenge of the first XCOM wasn't that everything was on a timer. It was that, like you were put in situations where you had to make tough choices. It wasn't like you're going to have to like throw people into the fucking wood chipper because you have to get that goddamn bomb defused.
Right.
You have to run your team into a goddamn saw blade of lizards and alien fucking snakes and shit. Like it was, it just for how much I loved that first game. Like the fact that they put a game out like that, I was kind of
I
it
would have
just
been
sucked.
curious
It,
to see them go backwards a little bit because you never played the original XComs.
no,
They were fucking mean as shit. Like your ship
yeah,
would land and your guy would take one step off the ship and get snapshotted from across the map by an alien. But it had some really cool things to it. Like all your characters had their inventory. You could kill an alien, and if his weapon survived, you could pick it up and you would have it. Like you'd have to get it back to base at the end of the mission. But like you know how you have to build laser rifles and stuff in the new XCOM, you could also salvage them from the field, which was really freaking helpful.
yeah,
And then when your characters got injured, I know in this one they can get injured, and if you still survive the mission, they'll go into the infirmary or whatever, but they'll survive. You could always abort a mission midterm if things were going south, and you could still like it wasn't a you either win or lose. It was well this is going bad, but I've killed like these aliens and I've got these corpses to study. And I can like grab this guy that's incapacitated and drag him back onto the ship. Um, so there was even more a bigger layer of tactics, and they said this specifically when they made the new XCOM that they were trying to make it more accessible. So that's why they
mm,
stripped a lot of that down. But once they released that and everybody played it and had a taste of it, it would have been cool to see them kind of go back and add some of that other stuff back in. I think that would have been the way
yeah.
to go with it.
But part of me wonders if like the things I don't like were like their attempts to do that. Maybe not like capture exactly like the original stuff, but like it does feel like they were trying to ramp shit up a little bit. And to me, it's like then part of the beauty of XCOM 1 is that there is an element of it that is, you can tell it is from an unforgiving series, but it is so accessible that somebody like me who didn't play very many strategy games at that time, like can play it and not only play it, but fucking love it. Um, like mechanically, XCOM 2, I would say is probably fine, but like a lot of the stuff they changed, I think, is to the detriment of that game. Hence, it's under disappointments for me. Um, the other two, I don't really have as much to say about. Salt and Sanctuary. Like it's hard to call a game I didn't even know about until it was released a disappointment. But playing that game, how that game feels, it's pretty. It feels pretty good. And the idea of doing like a 2D Dark Souls style game is appealing to me for obvious reasons. But the reason Dark Souls doesn't need to give you like a map or any sort of navigational tool is because the landmarks of that world are very clear.
Right.
And the areas of that world are very visually different from each other, and like they all stand out, and you can build the map in your head very easily. Salt and Sanctuary is very gray and very brown, and there's no way around it. Like because you're on a 2D fucking plane, you need a map, and they didn't give you one. At least not that I found in my time with the game. So that was kind of a bummer. The other one that's also on a lot of people's top 10, and I have no idea what the fuck they played, Hyper Light Drifter.
That fell into my just like it's on my list. I didn't really put
It's
it
a
as
game.
yeah.
Like, I mean, the only, and when I was making this list, like I said, I don't have much to say. All I remember is I hated how that game felt.
Yeah, like I liked
I
what they
didn't
were
like the,
going for. I didn't like the results.
yeah, like to me, it felt very stiff when like the speed they were trying to capture should have been a lot more fluid.
Right.
Um, and besides that, beyond the frustration in gameplay, I think it's kind of a knock against it. I don't remember anything about it. Like I remember the art style.
Yeah.
Um,
It's one I didn't remember I played until I went back through my list. The other knock I had against it was that it's one of those like open world ish exploit, but almost like Link to the Past, where it's like you have to explore, but you have to get this to unlock this area. But it did a real terrible job of like. I just spent so much of that my time playing that game, having no idea where I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And they
Yeah,
had that like
you
map
spend a lot of
that's
time lost, and like like you can compare it to A Link to the Past or something, but A Link to the Past has shit to guide you a
and it
little
was
bit.
fun to explore Link to the Past. This one it's not so much.
Yeah, well, it's from a pure gameplay standpoint, A Link to the Past is really fun to play. This I didn't enjoy at all. One thing I will say, and this Fury is on my top 10, but this goes to Hyper Light Drifter and Fury. Stop with the like charged dash shit. Like I don't want a dash. Like I want a dash to be really snappy and quick. I don't want it to be like building up some invisible meter to like go longer distances.
But it's like those cars that you have to wind up and then let go. Like
yeah, which is great until you need to fucking dodge something. That shit was really annoying to me. Like I hated it in Fury too. I got used to it more in Fury because Fury is a fucking good game. Outside of that, but yeah, those were my disappointments for the year. My real disappointments. There are other games that are kind of, I thought The Witness could have been better, but I would still say that's a good game. But yeah.
And that's why I knew this would be a good category. I've only got like two really that I was mad enough to write down. And the first one I won't really talk much about.
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
It was like one of the top gaming stories of 2016, and that's of course No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that'll be their top pick.
And that, honestly, it kind of falls a little into the category, like we said. It's not great. It's not terrible. I mean, I put a lot of hours into that game.
Well, it's a survival game,
right?
But
that's all it was, and they had our expectations so damn high for that, and they were going to do so many cool things that.
And I think you and me both agree that people probably overreacted and they overhyped that game a lot in their own heads. But there's no denying that they sold it on hype train.
I had to go back and look. And I mean, I agree with people that there's things that they literally said would be in the game that aren't. So I get that. And I get being mad about that. But like you said, I think people got mad about that and then were extra harsh to it because of that anger. And I understand it. But
I mean, if nothing else, anytime somebody's promising you like the fucking everything game, be very skeptical because like chances are they're overhyping it. It's the Peter Molyneux thing.
And it was funny because coming from Hello Games, I think their big game before this was that Joe Danger or whatever.
And
I remember thinking that initially, like when they announced this and what it was going to be and who it was from, not like them personally. I know nothing about them personally, but just a small studio that did a Excite Bike almost style side-scrolling bike, stunt game. And they're like, we're going to make this game where you can explore infinite planets with infinite aliens and stuff. And you're like, really? But then they managed to convince a lot of us. I bought it almost from because I didn't buy it for about a week or two after it released. So it was by the time I got it, it wasn't like it was a secret that people were pissed. Mine was more of a morbid curiosity purchase of that. And I think that might be part of it because I wasn't as pissed to play it and be like, oh, this stuff's not in here. And I didn't really follow the development that closely. Everybody knew what it was, but it wasn't like I was every press release reading about this feature or that feature because I didn't care.
I mean, I'm with you there. Even if the game had been what they promised, I still don't know if it would have been my type of game.
Right. I like those kind of games when they're good. Well, and like I said, it's evidence. I've put that looking about the games that I played this year and the amount of hours, that's up there. It's not the top. It's probably fourth or fifth, but it beats out a lot of games that I liked a lot better. So I mean, that says something. But
But I just, I think it deserves a mention in that category
You
because
kind of
it's
have to
like,
if you played it and you mentioned
yeah, just
disappointments.
what stands out to me is like the stuff they showed at like E3 trailers of like these giant dinosaurs and this like
Yeah,
some out of like this fucking sci-fi Jurassic
intergalactic. You're
Park,
right, exactly,
and
and
then
that's
like the actual game is like you and kind of a barren fucking rocky desert with like a goofy T-Rex thing that's like
right.
only 6 feet
It looks
tall and
like the toys from under Sid's bed in Toy Story that are just kind of
right,
like.
right.
But and that's what I mean. I saw that E3 trailer and that was such an amazing trailer. But after I played for about a week, I went back and specifically looked at like interviews and trailers and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I see why people are pissed. If I had been following this like religiously and like looking at all this stuff ahead of time, it's not that. But
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I'll give them props that after all that fucking wave of shit, they're still working on the game and trying
yeah,
to
and I hear
add shit to it.
the last big patch adds a lot of cool stuff and whatever.
Yeah,
I
but
just don't
yeah,
have time to go back
but
to it. But
right, and at the time it wasn't what they said
right.
it was.
But my big disappointment was the division, um, and
Mm.
it's we talked about it back at the time. Like for whatever reason, I even admitted ahead of time that as soon as they announced it, I had this like stupid like interest in the game that was there was like no real reason for me to be excited for it, but I couldn't help it. There
Well,
was
I mean,
just
a lot of people I think fell into that, and I think they seem to fall into like that game is disappointing in the same, almost the exact same way that Destiny was very
yes,
disappointing to people.
where
And
it
it,
seems cool, and then you get it, and it's pretty damn hollow, and you're like, oh.
yeah, it's
Um,
like for fuck.
but specifically, and we talked about it at the time, but I played the beta and got really excited for it, which was good because to get into the beta, I had to buy the pre-purchase the game. But
Mhm.
the big draw for me was the Dark Zone, which is the multiplayer component. Which normally in a game like the Division, that's kind of it's touted as a MMO, but it's kind of a Guild Warsy MMO, or Destiny. Destiny is a great comparison there. But anyway, so the multiplayer is not usually the big draw, but especially in beta in practice, you have this like lawless area that's player versus player, even though there are PVE enemies as well. But just the whole like you randomly run into people, they can go rogue and shoot you if they want, but that marks them as such and puts a bounty on their head, so everybody's after them. Any loot that you get, you have to actually get extracted out of the zone safely, and other players can. So, in other words, some good players that aren't marked as rogue, if they see that you have loot on you, they can't tell what it is, but that might tempt them into killing you to get it.
Yeah,
Like there was all these really cool nuances to how that worked, and in the beta, it was far from perfect, but it was fun. And I thought, man, when the full game comes out and we've got this like bigger area and everything, this could be great. And it went the opposite way. Once the full release was out, the Dark Zone was just crap.
yeah.
And then that left the PVE, which I played all the way through, and it was kind of fun to group up with people for the missions. But it's one of those things, and I feel Destiny's similar here too, where there's technically different. There's not really different classes. There's different classes of abilities that you can load out, but you can switch. Not in the middle. Actually, now I can't remember. You might even be able to switch on the fly. But you can have players that are more of a support like ability loadout and more of offense. None of it feels like it makes a damn bit of difference, which sucks because it makes everything so superficial. It literally turns into let's stand behind cover and just everybody shoot at the enemies and hope we shoot better than the enemies shoot. So I mean, it just wasn't real engaging. And without the multiplayer and without really engaging single player, that doesn't leave anything except for the one shining part of that game is you can get different beanies and scarves to equip on your character. Like,
Yeah.
it basically turned into Tom Clancy's post-apocalyptic dress-up doll for me. That was the only part I cared about was getting my character to look cool.
New clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just recently somebody was talking. Damn Amrich or I'm probably saying it wrong, and I forget where he even worked now. He's an industry guy, but he put out a list of his favorite games this year, and that was on it. And I said something like, "I'm just kind of surprised to see that." And he said, "Well, the patch it's like No Man's Sky where it came out and it got criticized, and they're like, well, we'll add content and make these changes." So I thought
Well,
I'd give it a
that's also the Destiny route.
yeah, that's true. Although Destiny, I think, was a little more successful with it because I think more people gave it a chance. So I thought, you know what? I have this game. It's paid for. It's not a subscription game. I'll reinstall it because I had deleted it and check it out. And I don't know. Maybe the patch helps, but now it runs like shit and it basically froze my whole computer. And it wasn't the game itself. It was that stupid ass Uplay Ubisoft launcher. And I'm like, well, fuck this. Like, nope.
Yeah.
I've got enough other things to play, and I didn't care about this game enough the first time around. So
Yeah, they really like on one hand, like Uplay is giving like they gave out a bunch of free games this year, and that's cool. But at the
when
same
your
time, it's
stupid
like that
launcher is
Uplay
affecting my
shit needs
PC
to.
performance, yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah,
so those were like the two big ones. There's other games that I could put, but those are the only two I really care to discuss. So.
yeah. I mean, there's plenty. You know, I could write a goddamn fucking movie about my problems with The Witness, but like at the same time, ultimately, I think that game is worth playing. So, you know, here's a few like just quick recommendations. I won't get into too much depth about any of them, but you know, they're not on my top 10, but I liked them. The Last Guardian, like I said, I Am Setsuna, I enjoyed. Dishonored 2 and Deus Ex. You know, I have some problems with them, but you know they're still worth picking up if you enjoyed their previous
I'm a
games.
little surprised neither of those are on your top 10, but yeah.
They just didn't wow me at any point. Like they're okay. You know, they're more of that same thing, but not necessarily better in any way. Starbound, you know, I haven't put nearly as much time into that as I want to. Stardew Valley is kind of the same story as that. Like I like both those games, but they're very easy to put aside when you're kind of overwhelmed. Which is almost a point in their favor. Is like you can always go back to them because they're very simple mechanically. Devil Daggers, great game. Fucking,
That's on a lot of top 10 lists I've seen. Yeah.
it's fun as hell. You know, the only reason it didn't make mine is because as much as I enjoyed it, like I kind of stopped playing it after a couple weeks. You know, and it is what it is. Like it's not really a game you beat. For what it is, it's fun though. Phoenix Wright Spirit of Justice is a new Phoenix Wright game. Kind of same thing as like Deus Ex. Like it's more of that. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2, I didn't like initially. Now I love it, but it is kind of it's a Pac-Man game you kind of have to work at to learn to appreciate. And I don't really
hear. Yeah.
Yeah, but once you do, you get kind of the flow of that game, and it's pretty fun. Super Hot, which I don't know if you've had a chance to even look at that.
No, not yet, but
that game's pretty cool. But it's over. Like the main part of that game is over in like 2 hours. I know there's a lot more to do in it, but I just haven't been able to go back to it. But it's a really slick game, a really interesting game, and pretty damn fun when you're finally playing it. Epistory, I liked. I reviewed that a while back, but that's a pretty interesting, pretty small game. And then The Witness, obviously, and the Ratchet and Clank remake. I really enjoyed.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, like I enjoyed that, but it was. Yeah, like they all fall in the sort of same camp of like more of the same. Even Madden this year was pretty good. Like I put a few more hours into that this
I didn't
past
even know
week.
you had that.
Yeah, it's pretty good, except points where I had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and then the game like cut to the guy who scored the touchdown, and he was sitting on a bench talking to himself. And by that, I mean he had another model of himself right next to him.
Nice.
And they were talking about his great touchdown. So if you want to watch your defensive lineman lose his mind, that's a pretty great game.
Well, it's a Madden game. It kind of fits. It's like what goes on in Madden's head.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I guess we can. This timed out pretty well.
Out there. Beholder. We talked a little bit about that on this show. It's It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I
I
put a
need to
couple
put
I
more.
put a couple minutes into that yesterday actually.
It's
And that's
interesting.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I need to put more time into it. Abzu, that was one.
Abzer's on my top
Yeah, I
10.
kind of figured when you didn't mention it. Um, that's really it. I played Dragon Quest Seven, which is a remake. It's a
Yeah.
2016 game of a 2000 game, and I enjoyed it until I didn't. It's just too long and repetitive.
Yeah.
So, uh, and this one's probably I'm sure is on your top 10 list because you're crazy and you love it. But Inside.
Inside's great.
Oh, here's one.
Inside's my top 3.
Here's the one that I really
Um,
wanted to mention. See, that's what you get for not making actual notes. Total War Warhammer. I put a couple hours into that, and it's really good if you like real time strategy games. I like this one
yeah.
because I like Warhammer, and I like the idea of real time strategy games. I just suck at them so much.
You're
Like,
just impulsively drawn to anything Warhammer no
I
matter
am.
what.
There's like looking through this, counting the one that I got a refund for. There's at least four Warhammer games I bought this year. Two of them, I guess I can mention real quick. They're on my list of games from prior to 2016 that I played as Mordheim City of the Damned. It's really cool. It's kind of a turn-based strategy game. I need to put more time into that. And Warhammer Vermintide, which is kind of like their Left 4 Dead Warhammer take, which I guess could have been cool if you had friends or something. It's supposed to, people that play it really like it, but I only played like one or two missions, and it's like, it's
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe I didn't give it a fair shake, but anyway. So that's my stuff. I won't talk about. I'll let you talk about your top 10 because I have a feeling. Well, I'll
There'll
mention
be
this real quick.
overlaps.
I think everything will overlap, except I did put Stardew Valley on my. I didn't do a top
Yeah.
10 because I didn't play enough games, but it's on my good list.
It's on the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's on my good list. And the
Yeah,
other
I
ones
mean,
think you're gonna be
Stardew
on
Valley
yours.
is a really cool game, and I know my brother played a lot of it. The only reason it's not on mine is I think if I put more time into it, I would have gotten more out of it. I ran out of it.
Well, and I
Like,
think there was some, I forget what, but a pretty big release that you were looking forward to that came out like right at
I think
about the time you were playing it.
I think Dark Souls,
It might have been.
or Doom, something like that. Like, and then it all spiraled.
Right.
So the way my list is now, like I said, I think Titanfall 2, at least of all the games I have sitting, will probably take a spot. But how it's sitting now, based on games I've put significantly more time into, number 10, Let It Die.
And that was one that I don't think you were really watching ahead of the release.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. Most of these are not. And that's what's so fucked up about this year.
Well, that's always cool, though.
And really, yeah, it's really cool. But it also says something about the games I was excited for.
Well, yeah, that too.
A little bit. But Let It Die is really fun. It's really crazy. I don't know how much time I'll put into it before I'm done, and move on to something else. But the time I have put in has been really fun, really kind of scary in some ways. And just a fucking crazy game that doesn't feel like it's handcuffed in any way, that like I can really appreciate right now. Fury at number 9. I talked about that last week.
And that one surprised me too, because when you initially played it,
Yeah.
I seem to remember it sounding like you hated it, and then it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. And then like I said, I don't know if it's the patch. I don't know if I was just better. But that is a really slick action game. One of the most fun, different action games I've played in many, many years. Number 8, Uncharted 4. Is it like I'm surprised you didn't know I played it. I reviewed it.
I probably just forgot, but
That was one of the last games I reviewed.
mostly I was just trying to make a joke about like it getting all the awards for no reason. Like, not no reason. I get that it's a good game, and I think it's one of those games on my list of why I want a PlayStation 4.
It is the best Uncharted game. That doesn't mean as much to me as other people. But there is a really cool story there of like Nate and his long lost brother. that
and they're just also such cinematic games and gorgeous games, and
yeah. And I think this one plays better than any of the other ones have before, and that's big to me. I don't think it's like The Last of Us good, but it's very, very solid. Um, Abzu at number 7. I think I'm keeping track of this right. I didn't number this list. I'm just assuming there are 10. Um,
you'll get
so
to number
Abzu,
-3.
yeah. Oh shit! Wait,
Drum
we're
roll,
at
please.
15 now.
Yeah.
Um, so Abzu is like I think that game gets dismissed like, oh, it's just underwater journey, and to me it's like, yeah, and journey
Well,
was
yeah.
cool, and water is better. So like this is a really fucking beautiful game. There's not like just fucking play it. Like it's fuck Fantasia games. This is a Fantasia
The
game.
only thing I'll say about Abzu is I wish there was more interaction with some of the other fish and like creatures, like there was with the great white. Like,
I mean, you read the whales.
yes,
Like that was cool.
and the
And,
dolphins
and I
and
and I
basically any
love
big
I
fish.
love that fucking shark, man. By the end of it, and I'm terrified of sharks.
But I think that's what was so cool because we were in the same boat there. Sharks are like probably my favorite animal. If you have to go back to like that third grade thing where you pick a favorite animal,
Right?
but I'm terrified of them.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I liked wolves when I was a kid,
yeah,
and
my nieces
I
are like.
still
That's
do.
why I said that because my nieces are like that about wolves, dragons too. But as far as I know, dragons aren't real yet.
Oh, you're mistaken, my friend.
But wolves, they're like nuts about wolves. So as soon as I said sharks are my favorite animal, it made me feel like I was my 8-year-old
Yeah.
niece. But whatever, I like sharks a lot. They're cool.
But just like you like things, even though in person they would be fucking terrifying.
Right. Like I don't
But that
necessarily want to go like scuba diving or worse like the people snorkeling where there's like at least scuba you feel like you have some gear. There's a chance that they'll clamp down on your tank and be like, "Oh, this is metal. I don't want to eat it." But
yeah,
like snorkeling, you're just like, "Here's my bare flesh. Come eat me." I guess
yeah.
not bare unless you're naked snorkeling, which is probably a thing too. But anyway,
Oh yeah.
Abzu. That has
I can
nothing to do
confirm.
with yeah.
Um, but like between Last Guardian Trico and Abzu's shark, like I don't know which animal buddy I like more. They're both great. Owlboy,
So there's another theme. You're more animals. Make a
more
game with
animals.
animals.
Well, yeah, I'm an animal
I
lover.
didn't know you played Cowboy either.
Maybe I was playing that back when we were doing Overwatch streams, so I didn't really get time to talk about
Yeah,
it.
probably. You
That might have
probably
been it.
mentioned. I think you did talk about it a little bit, but we were
Yeah.
busy trying to push the payload because nobody else
Yeah.
will.
Trying to get on the point. Owlboy is really fun though. Like I had my problems with the end of that game where it kind of the whole game it teaches you to use these abilities and then it just takes them away from you and then gives you kind of a shitty boss fight. But overall that game is really pretty. You can tell it was a labor of love and like it paid off. I think that's a really cool game. And now we're getting to the top 5. Hitman. Fucking
I want to
Hitman
watch
is.
that. Everybody is talking about it, but I saw yours first. That 2-hour Giant Bomb stream of it. But
You gotta watch it. I mean, like it's rare that because I know their videos are always they go pretty long, and it's hard to like tell people like, oh, you should watch this, and it's like, yeah, I don't have 2 hours, but even if you watch it in bits, like they'll remember where you left off at. Their video player's smart, but like you need to watch it. Like Vinny Caravella's run in that Hitman video goes like an hour and a half, and it's fucking hilarious. Like there's a point where they climb up on a balcony, and he's trying to throw a knife into a woman's head, but the like guards are seeing him, and they're starting to like the arresting icon is coming up, and like he's starting to panic, and he can't get the lock on to work. So he just underhand tosses the knife off the roof and then runs away. And there's
that's what
so
that
many
game
fucking
lends
great.
itself to, though. Like it's
It is the funniest game of the year,
right.
easily. And that's
Which is
there's
hilarious because it's about like slitting people's throats when they're not watching, and you're like, it's
yeah.
hilarious.
And that's something that like they kind of, I didn't play any of the other Hitman games, but I kind of knew that like they always tried to for like they had a sense of humor about themselves, but like there was something gritty about them. And like this one, it seems like it gives you that setup, but then like it kind of pulls back and like gives the like it's almost like a wash of color comes over your vision, and it's like, all right, now let's
Let's play some drums.
let's get fucking crazy. Like what dumbass disguise can I go into and that will help me get to this fucking prick? And the episodes, they're not all as good as the others. Like it's not a perfect, flawless first season, but as a first season of content, the amount you can do on each map, and just like the hilarious number of approaches that you can fucking do on each mission, and then the bonus missions that they keep adding to it, the elusive targets and stuff.
That's really cool.
This is a really well supported game. The release structure they went through, like everyone had a lot of doubts about it.
I was going to say, we talked about that when they first announced it, like a new Hitman. You're like, cool, because that's one of those series that I've always kind of enjoyed. I don't want to say like I'm a long-term fan, but I've played them back to the first one. I remember when the first one came out. And then they're like, it's going to be episodic. And you're like, what? And it actually fits. This is probably one of the best games to do it that way. Like,
yeah, and well, just because how much work they put into each map. Like, if you released it all at once, it would work. But I think it works better this way, where you really get to play around, and like each map is a little playground for you, and like they let you go through that to your heart's content. And then when it's like, like I fell behind a little bit, but it felt like the release pace was exactly where it should be. Like, hey, new Hitman map.
And on top of it, like they announced it's going to be episodic, and my first thought is, so you get a level, and then 3 months later you get your next one. But they, like you said, they support it very well, because in between you get the elusive targets and the different like challenges to do. So it's not like you beat this level in 2 days and then you have to wait 3 months before you play the game again.
And this goes into the surprise camp, because like I said, I have no backstory with Hitman.
You've never played Hitman, have you?
Never played it. Heard they're rebooting it. Didn't have any interest there. Heard they were releasing it episodic, and I was like, well, that sounds like a game in a lot of fucking trouble, because that's just how we're conditioned.
Right.
It's like, oh, they're changing how they're going to make
like
this.
Hearing that this subscription-based MMO is going free to play. That's usually like ship is sinking. In exactly 2 weeks.
But it has some of my favorite moments of the year. Like this Hitman game, like I recommend it to fucking everybody because it's so funny.
Probably should have picked. Well, I don't know. The Steam sale's probably still going on.
Yeah, I mean, you should pick up the first episode if nothing else. I think that's like $8.
Well, right now it's like 2 or 3, I think, or maybe it's 7 or 8.
No, I think that was the sale price, but whatever.
Last time the fall sale, they tricked me with that, because Hitman's in my wish list, and then it's like, oh, holiday sale, $7. I'm like, holy shit, that's a great deal. And then I realized it meant per episode.
Per episode, yeah.
Yeah. But,
and that's the one bad side of the episodic release is the price isn't. It's still
$30 or $40. I think you can get the full season for, and that's sounds like it's worth it.
You should, like anyone should. I think this is like once we're in the top 5, I think these are all must-play games. Number 4,
yes.
Dark Souls 3.
Yes. Except for that, you meant to say number 1.
No. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and Dark Souls 3 is a solid number 4 game.
Yeah. It's up in my top 3.
Well, you didn't like Inside, which is your mistake as a human.
But it's just yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that at number 3. Let's talk about Dark Souls. I think they did a really good job kind of closing off that series. I don't think it's to me it wasn't as amazing as Bloodborne, which if there's any reason you should have a PS4, it's that. But this was a really cool game. I liked a lot of the little changes they did to the combat, like giving you like that sort of special ability with like a magic bar attached to it. Um, like I enjoyed all that stuff. I enjoyed the locations you go. Like there's just as far as a trilogy goes, like I don't know if there's a better one than the Souls games. Um, you know, obviously not counting Demon Souls. I mean Dark Souls as a trilogy, but
Well, a lot of people love Demon Souls too. I know you don't share that same
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, not my time with it. I think Demon Souls is kind of a pain in the ass, but you know, maybe I'll change my tune and I'll play it one day all the way through. But yeah, and I know people don't really like Dark Souls 2 as much, but I think 1, 2, and 3, like they all have their strong points. And I think just as a universe that they've built in these three games, like the games are fun on their own, but like the fact that they attach so much lore to it, that there's so much story underneath the surface is so cool to me.
Yeah.
And I think like, you know, I mean, we talked about Dark Souls 3 probably about as much as we played Overwatch this year. So
Yeah.
I'll cut this short, but you know, I think Dark Souls 3 was a very special game.
The only knock I have against 3, and it's a minor knock because it's top game, top 3 for the year for me. But is that the world wasn't as open and connected as 1, and I haven't played 2 yet. But
Yeah.
it felt more linear, so that was slightly disappointing. But the game itself was so good, it wasn't like it ruined anything.
Yeah. Like
Plus,
they're all
going back and
variations.
playing 3 and then 1, I do miss the fact that 3 had bonfires like every 10 feet because 1
Right.
does not, and that gets a little frustrating. But
Yeah. So yeah, Dark Souls 3 at number 4. I put Inside at number 3. I mean, I you know, maybe I'm coming at it with just sort of a bias towards these games that Playdead makes. You know, I think Limbo was my game of the year that year. You know, like I think as far as that formula goes, they know what they're doing. Like kind of the eerie, atmospheric puzzle platformer. Like you know, that is definitely my jam. So yeah, like I thought they nailed it with that game. I know a lot of people have different opinions, but to me, I think they can like. To me, I think it's a better puzzle game than something like The Witness, where The Witness takes these sharp jumps in difficulty and failing to explain mechanics to you. I feel like there's no part in Inside that ever got too difficult, but there was enough parts where like you kind of have to take the tools the game gives you to think outside the box of like what you've solved before. So it just felt really smart.
And that's where we differ, is because I felt like most of the puzzles were just repetitive. Like it was basically the same, like just a slight twist on. And I don't know. Maybe I played through it once, and I didn't hate it by any means. It controls. It's exactly what you want from a platform puzzler. Like it felt wonderful to play. Stylistically, it's awesome. The story was kind of weird, but in a pretty cool way. But the puzzles, it didn't like grab me.
And that's that's fine. But I don't see
like you played the game like in a good mood, and I played the game on a night where I hadn't eaten dinner and was in a bad mood.
I mean that's possible, but I mean you felt how you felt, but
right.
Like to me, it's like how you interpret it is like completely insane to me, because it's like to me none of the puzzles felt the same. Like there were mechanics used, but that's the same in any puzzle game where it's like you have to use the mind control thing or something. But I thought like the individual tasks, they added enough variety to it. That like thinking about like where you start in that game and then like how it all ends up. Like at first you start like you're using little chickens to push over a crate, like shoving them into like a fucking thing that'll shoot them out and push the crate over. And then at the end of the game, if you haven't played it,
I almost made a joke, but I don't want to because it's a spoiler. But
yeah,
plus
to
it was
me,
somebody else's joke that I was going to steal, but no.
Like there's a chance, like I think this is a pretty divisive game for a lot of people this year. But if you are somebody who would enjoy Inside, I would hate myself for spoiling it for anyone. Yeah. Because it's one of my favorite endings ever.
And I'll say it's one of those games that Technically, if I made a top 10 list, it would be on it. But
Yeah,
I think Batman, a Telltale game, would end up on that list because I run out of games.
yeah,
But if you were like, oh, I'm thinking of buying Inside, I'd say do it. I would certainly. Now, if you're like, I don't really like puzzle platformers, should I buy Inside? I would say, well, probably not. But if you were like even slightly curious about it, buy it. I don't think you'll hate it. Like,
yeah.
I
You
don't
should.
hate it. It's a good game. It's just it didn't. I think you gave it a 10, a 9, or a 10.
Because I think for what it did, like for
Yeah.
what they tried to do, I think they nailed it perfectly.
So our real
Um,
disagreement here is like I'm maybe like a
how good
point
is it?
5, like yeah, under you on the scale.
Yeah,
So
uh,
yeah,
which is usually where we argue.
I definitely wouldn't put Inside over Dark Souls, but
Yeah.
I.
Well,
But part of that
this
is
isn't
I like that
the
kind of game.
site's top 10. This is
Right.
my top 10.
Exactly.
So, but here we come to the last two, and well, I've known for months, like
Yeah,
unless they're
I
real
don't think you're going to surprise me with these, but maybe you will.
no.
Okay.
um,
Well,
I
this
knew
is a good night then.
it was going to come to these two, and I've been flip flopping over which one's better or which one would be my
Well, see, that's the
not necessarily
problem.
better because I
They're-
think they're both amazing.
right.
Um, Doom and Overwatch.
Yep. Yep. And
And
see, and that's going to be how you work. Well, this is your list, so I want to see what list order you put it in.
I just changed it a week ago, and
Oh, I thought
I
you
have
meant like just now when we were talking.
no, no. I changed it a week ago, and I have Overwatch on top
Okay.
of Doom.
I'm surprised, given the loot crate issues you've been having. Drop it off
Believe
the
me,
list altogether.
I wanted to change it back yesterday. And it's so tough because Doom is amazing. Doom is a fucking great game.
And I'll say I'd put them in the same order. I put Overwatch first and Doom second, and it was one of those that almost like I hate the phrase, but people say, "Oh, it hurt my heart," but like the way
You
I
really
finally,
give it to Doom because Doom's campaign is so fucking fun.
it's such a great game from every aspect, and it's also, if you were saying most surprising game of the year, Doom. 'Cause
Absolutely.
we've said it a
Yeah.
million times throughout the year, but if you knew they were making a new Doom, and they actually kind of they switched directions midway through, but
Yeah, they were doing like a Call of Duty fucking clone, and then they turned it into
whatever guy
this
made that,
perfect
say guy,
capturing.
could have been a woman, whatever person made that decision, they need like a Nobel Peace Prize in video gaming because,
Yeah.
which a Peace Prize for Doom would be ironic, but it just did everything so right, like everything, and then to like put the
And
nail in the
yeah.
coffin that live performance of the Doom music at the Game Awards, like the actual like.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Oh,
was
the style of Doom, like the whole tone of it, they fucking nailed. It is one of the best games. It is one of the best shooter campaigns I've ever played,
which is
easily.
what's so
Um,
funny about it is it's the best modern take on shooters. Like it's advanced. I think that arcadey shooter more than any other game has. At the same time, it feels exactly true to the original.
Yeah, like it feels like it took all the lessons that good shooters could teach us up to this point, but they didn't like they remembered the framework
Right.
that made Doom appealing, and so you get this really smooth, fast, frenetic campaign it's just a blast to go through, and it's a game that I think is worthy of multiple replays.
Well, and I know you didn't get into it. The multiplayer was relatively fun. That's a little more generic than
Well,
the
the
single player.
multiplayer's the multiplayer's okay, and when I was doing my ranking, like it wasn't a knock on the multiplayer so much that I think Overwatch beat it out for me. The multiplayer is what it is, but I'm from the school of thought of like if you do one thing really well,
exactly.
like the fact that you did this other aspect of your game not so well doesn't disqualify that.
You can't. This is one of those cases. I know people try to make this argument and say, "Well, the multiplayer wasn't." I mean, it was fine. It was just generic. But people try to make the argument. Well, then if they would have just focused on just single player, you couldn't have made the single player better. I don't accept that argument in this case.
The one argument I kind of made in my head when I was doing this ranking, and it's it's the most minor of nitpicks because I do come from the school of thought that one of the best things you can do, no matter what medium you're in, is to leave your audience wanting more. But when you do something so well that they're like, I want more of that, and I made it no secret at the time when I played through Doom, I wanted more of that campaign. I was not done playing Doom. But it was kind of disappointing to see like all the new Doom DLC, but it was all for the multiplayer stuff.
Right.
So how they were supporting that game, I didn't really like. Whereas
But I think
Overwatch was supported all year.
because, and again, I will be non-specific here because this isn't a spoiler cast show, but the way that they ended the Doom single player campaign was very much like, here comes Doom 2. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like they
but
probably
I've
don't
never
have a lot
I've
of
never
room.
liked that. I've never liked that assumption of, hey, well, wait till the sequel. Well, you might not get a fucking sequel.
Well, what I'm
Like,
saying is like the single player DLC, they didn't really leave a lot of room to add more to it without like doing something weird like, here you're not
and
Doom
the
guy, you're somebody else, and this is going on in this part of the timeline. Like, so they
I
kind of
mean,
locked
there's no
themselves in.
reason they couldn't fucking do that. I think there's enough room in the crazy Doom universe that they could have given it some single player support. But that criticism isn't to like they should have made Doom single player DLC. Like I said, that campaign is
Yeah, it's
it's about
perfect.
fucking perfect. Um, it's more just a praise of Overwatch to
Well, I was
me
gonna say,
that
here's what made me up until I just made this decision like yesterday to put because I've had the Dark Souls, Overwatch, and Doom are
Doom,
my top
yeah,
three,
that
and I was having a
trifecta.
hard time picking because they're all great, but as like Overwatch and Doom stand out above Dark Souls as much as I love that series. My final thought, the reason I picked Overwatch number one for me, is as great as Doom was, I played it 26 hours. I've played probably 200 hours of Overwatch. Like that says something for the game. Like,
Yeah, I mean, well, that's putting it a little, for me, a little too bluntly, because like almost all the time I put more time into a multiplayer game than a single player game, and that doesn't necessarily change it. But the fact that every like that amount of time throughout that period of time, they've been tweaking and polishing and adding stuff to Overwatch. Like that game feels just as like alive and like
right.
current today as the day it came out.
When I get
Um,
into it, I mean, there's nights that I'm like, I guess I'll play Overwatch, but really, when I'm playing, I'm just as excited to be playing it now as I was at
yeah,
launch. Um,
you know,
it's a testament. What I mean by like the playtime, like of course, multiplayer, you usually play more time, but 200 hours, and it just shows that like the character design is wonderful. The level design for a multiplayer game is. You can argue about like tweaks and stuff on the characters, but the levels are so expertly made because they all work. I mean, some of
yeah,
them have different advantages than others. There's some that I feel like, oh, the first point's a little too tough on offense, but it's obviously not game breaking because you keep playing, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Um,
yeah,
it's obvious how much Blizzard understood what they were doing, and they knew how to like pull it
yeah.
off, and they did.
And just to make it like to for them to jump into the shooter market and I think knock it out of the park of like we're gonna have characters that all feel very unique. Um, but they're all very accessible. Like the accessibility is the huge thing about that game because like it is not you do not have to put that much time into it to learn how to contribute.
Right. I mean,
Um,
take something like League of Legends, which is a you can make those comparisons to the MOBA.
yeah,
League of Legends, it's a learning curve. It's not even a learning curve. It's like a learning Mount Everest.
it's a
It's
class. You got
right,
to take a course and
a doctorate even,
yeah,
and even then, games like that have I don't know what their roster size is up to. I think it's over 100. It's like shit. Yeah,
yeah,
nobody's going to learn every character there. Well, I can't say nobody, but the
yeah.
average player is not going to learn all those characters. Um, yeah, it's a great mix though because Overwatch is good enough. Oh, I'll say good enough. It's done so well that if you're a hardcore competitive gamer, that's there.
Yeah,
But if
it's the definition of like, easy to learn, tough to master
right,
type thing. And like, they like, as much as like we fucking shit about like and bitch about the community and like everybody does, like any other online game really. Um, like, that was something, honestly, that was one thing holding the game back for me, where I was like, do I really, like, Overwatch makes me fucking feel bad about myself a lot. And not just the loot boxes. um so like, but at the same time it's like, that's a reality of online games.
well, to
And
be
the but and
honest,
it's something to Overwatch's credit that I'm so deep into this one that like I'm like, this seems big to me, but that's only because this is the only multiplayer game I got this sucked into.
well, and I've seen a lot of talk about the toxic Overwatch community, and to be honest, I don't think it's that. You have toxic players, you have,
Yeah.
but if you compare
Well,
it to
I've
like
said many times, like, we are toxic players. The only difference is we don't get on mic and shoot
right,
people
we
out.
keep it to
We have a
ourselves.
mute button, you know.
But yeah, and it's really not that. And then it's like the big like life lesson that applies to anything too. When you get those players, if you just ignore them, they tend to
Mute
go
them,
away.
block them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the more you play, the more you toughen up to that. And
And sometimes it
you,
makes your experience just wonderful.
yeah.
Like
Yeah. When you really get a piece of shit and you can fuck with them,
I was playing a
when a
ranked
guy's,
game. Well, we talked about my ranked placement matches went to hell this time, season 3. So
yeah,
I initially was bronze. I am silver now. Thank you very much. But
saw that.
so I initially was bronze, but I was in a ranked match, and I think I was playing as Roadhog or something. And there was somebody on the other team that was one of those characters that just, when you know a character, you know what characters to single out because that's what your function is. And I was
Yeah.
kicking his ass. I mean, I'd kill this guy like every 30 seconds. And our team, just in general, was better than their team. We, of course, won. But after the first round, just out of nowhere in chat, he's like, "Fuck you, Phaser. You're just a bronze." And I'm like, "But I'm kicking your ass. Like, what kind of an
I'm
insult
winning.
is that? Like,
Yeah.
that's like a professional athlete, LeBron getting shut down by a high school player, and him being like, "You dick, you're just a high school player." It's like, yeah, one
Yeah.
that's kicking your ass. Like,
Yeah.
so
And when
sometimes, like,
Charles Barkley gets blocked by that girl in Space Jam, it's
right.
like, oh shit.
So
Yeah. I
sometimes
mean,
it
we
works
were.
out. It makes the game great when people are like trying to be toxic, and it's like, I don't think you
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Um,
just remember you're playing a game to have fun and be
well,
ready to do it at
and
some asshole's expense.
and that was a big switch in my. There was like that period there where I was really getting into Overwatch, and I still get mad at him. My wife talks
I
about how much I cuss when I play that game, but
I almost broke my hand slamming it on the table yesterday, and but
yeah.
that
So I
was
still get,
because of the loot boxes.
and
So
so I still get frustrated. But there was a point where I was like, you know what, rank doesn't really matter. Quick play really doesn't matter.
yeah, and
You
if you
know,
expect to win an arcade, you're an idiot.
yeah,
So like, arcade is where fucking hopes of
because
victory go to die.
you're still getting the same like random mix of really good but a lot of shitty teammates, plus they're getting random because me and you both
Yeah,
mostly play with mystery mode. So you add a shitty player that's getting a random
and then half your
character,
team supports.
right? The last time that we played, I don't think we streamed it. I think we just played.
Yeah,
There were times where me and you would go in. I remember one time specifically where I killed 4 people on the point we were on offense. You were like Diva or something, and you had got there right after me, and you were holding it down, and everybody
no
else
one
was back at the
pushed.
choke point, just like
Yeah,
taking pot shots. It's like, get the hell in here,
yeah,
morons. But
yeah. I mean, like, it's. But like I said, there's something of it, like, because I wouldn't have the patience, like, and I haven't had the patience with other multiplayer games, and like dealing with the reality of just playing with strangers over the internet. Like, even for games I've enjoyed, I liked Splatoon, I liked Counter
Counter
Strike.
Strike, yeah, yeah.
I put a lot of time into Counter Strike back in my day, but
Those are almost a
it's
little different too, though. Like I played hours and hours and hours of Modern
well,
Warfare.
Splatoon can't get really toxic. You can't really talk to anyone.
Well,
So.
right.
Good job, Nintendo. That's the thing. Overwatch on the Nintendo Wii U should have happened. Um,
Then all you'd have is the "Cheers, love." I didn't ask
yeah,
for the. Oh no, that's the wrong game. But that should be Soldier 76, one of his emotes.
yeah. But yeah,
So
like
yeah,
despite the community, despite the fucking loot boxes
well,
fucking me over, Overwatch is not like it's not only for me the game of the year. It's my favorite multiplayer game ever. Like easy. Like
probably Rocket League's up there though. I played
I
so much. That's
I enjoyed Rocket League, but I have not touched it since Overwatch.
well, that's
Uh,
true. That's a good point because I
and I put more time probably into Overwatch than I did Rocket League.
and
Yeah,
you're probably getting close now. I'm at 214 hours on Rocket League, and I'm probably around. I haven't added up because if I go into like my profile, it likes to show how many hours you've had on like your current season.
yeah,
And I haven't gone in to look at my overall hours, but it's got to be getting close to that.
yeah. I mean, I think for all my praise of Overwatch, I think I've still put more time into Metal Gear Solid 5 than I have Overwatch. But
That's
it's.
easy to do too.
But I mean, like, and probably put more time into Counter Strike Source than I did Overwatch. But I would, now that Overwatch is here and I have CS:GO and stuff, like I'll play Overwatch anytime before Counter Strike at this point. And I like Counter Strike. I think it's fun. But I have no thought in me that I will go back to these other, multiplayer games of old. Like to me, Overwatch is the multiplayer game that I'm like locked into now.
Now I want to make like a Christmas Carol type song about multiplayer games of old.
Of old, ye old multiplayer. But yeah, I mean, but Doom is also incredible. Doom was up top for me
Yeah,
for many months, and then it just like after like just the accumulation and like the fact that they are so committed to this, like constantly tweaking it, constantly trying, like even if it doesn't always work, like the fucking Junkrat Riptire buff was completely stupid,
yeah, they
but
fixed it pretty quickly though.
but they dialed that back fucking really fast. But that's the thing, like the fact that they're constantly trying to tweak this thing, constantly trying to find the perfect balance, even though that they know that's never going to happen. Like you're never going to get this game perfect, but I love that they're constantly trying. Again, like they're making a game that is perfect for the competitive scene and perfect for the casual player. I think everyone should play Overwatch. I think everyone should play Doom. Overwatch to me is just a little bit more impressive. So,
But yeah, it's a very, very thin line.
yeah,
If you wanted to make it easier, you'd say the best multiplayer game of the year is Overwatch, and the best single player game of the year is Doom.
easily. Yeah. Yeah, hell of a year for shooters, honestly.
Which is surprising because that's not. Well, I
This
don't
isn't
know.
our genre,
I always
really.
say it's not my genre, but when you look back across all the games I play, they make up like 50% of them. So,
But maybe
I
that's
don't
just
know.
because they're 50% shooters. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, that's the thing. Out of your sample size, there's so many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, Overwatch, Doom, Titanfall 2, I would put Devil Daggers in there.
Maybe what it
Fuck
is
the
isn't so
shooter.
much that I don't like shooters; it's that there's a lot of really bad shooters. And it's like when
But
they're good,
I
they're
think
really
this was,
good. But
yeah, and I think this was the year where a lot of teams did some really ambitious shit. Like, like it almost felt like the industry as a whole was like, I mean, outside of, Activision's going to keep doing goddamn Call of Duty forever, but and, EA with Battlefield, but it seemed like a lot of teams were like, you know what, why are we copying them? Like, why are we doing the same formula for our games? Like, all these games are the same now. Let's fucking change shit up. So that's pretty cool. The only thing is EA fucked up and released all of their shooters at the same time.
yeah, that was
They they shouldn't have done that. But other than that,
and that's my thing with Titanfall 2. I heard it was really good, and I was in the mood to play it, but it's EA, and I'm a PC player, so that means Origin, which means no.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would play Battlefield one day, but I don't see
I
myself
didn't ask
getting.
you. Titanfall 2, is that PlayStation 4, or did you get it on PC?
I got it on PS4. Just I wanted something kind of away from my PC a little bit. I'm sure I've heard it plays fine on PC, but I wanted something when I'm away from the computer. I can kind of
Oh, sure.
kick back with a
Well,
controller and chill
if
out.
I had a PlayStation 4 and a PC, Origin
Yeah.
aside, because I'd make no secret that I hate that Origin platform, I
Right.
still think I'd pick console for that game. But
Yeah. And I mean, I think whatever you play it on, it's a great looking game. So yeah, that's 2016 in review. In conclusion,
which means next week is a harder task for me because I've already tried to think about this multiple times and kind of draw a blank. But that's what games are coming out next year, like that we're
yeah,
looking forward to. Also, the stuff that we're playing because we're both you more so than me, but we both have things that aren't Overwatch that
plenty
we're
to do.
playing.
Yeah.
Right. So
Um, yeah. So this has been a fun, kind of weird year. Yeah, if you have watched or followed us at all, thanks. Sorry.
sorry. Yeah.
I think I say that every year, and I think it's important to tradition. But yeah, we'll see you at the first show of 2017.
Which will be on
New
like the
dawn,
third day or fourth day of 2017.
a new hope.
I don't know. The year might not last 3 days the way 2016
Yeah,
started,
fucking.
but whatever.
How did we miss that asteroid?
If we're all still here, we'll be back next week.
So, ciao.